So, once upon a time, there was a toddler, and the toddler's name was Timmy. And things were going well for Timmy. Things were looking up. Life was good, life was balanced, life was fun. He was just to that point where he was getting a little bit of language, and he was talking nonstop, even though he didn't have so much language. It was a sweet, sweet, beautiful time for Timmy, but one morning, in his crib, Timmy woke up to flashes, green flashes everywhere that he saw. It was the strangest thing. They were just zipping around, and you could see, couldn't really even focus on any of them because they were flying so fast. And they zipped past his eyes, and they zipped all around, and they looked like they were bouncing almost off the ceilings and everywhere. And then one landed straight in the middle of his nose, straight on his nose, and looked right at him and had a big pot belly, little arms that stuck out, and little antennas. And it said, "We are the wee leaping greenly things." And then he jumped right off his nose. And they kept flying around, and it was like a blur. He could barely focus on them. Because as soon as they landed, they took off again, and they were bouncing. And then another one with a little fuzzy beard landed on his nose, and he said, "And we've come to take over this land. There will be no resisting. We have millions and millions other wee leaping greenly things. And we're on our way." And he started bouncing again. And, Timmy's like, just woke up. And Timmy's a little groggy, and he's like, what's going on? And then another one landed straight in the middle of his nose, and he said, "And it's only you can avert this cataclysm, this attack, these millions and millions of wee leaping greenly things." And then that one slowed down and jumped right down into Timmy's hand. And slowly it started to fizz and started to bubble. It didn't hurt, but it was just weird looking and fizzing and bubbling, and it kind of cooled. And what was once a little green leaping thing became this small medallion almost, this golden medallion with 4 little quadrants, and they glowed and they kind of pulsed, these 4 differently colored quadrants, and he was looking down at it. And when he was looking down, another one jumped and dangled off of his eyelids and said, "Don't look at that, look at me." And he jumped onto his nose and he said, "Your quest. You must discover truth." And then he jumped off his nose again, and they were bouncing all around, and Timmy was like dizzy. He was trying to track them, and he was so confused. And another one landed on his nose, and it said, "It is yours. You must discover truth, or we will destroy this world." And he was like, "Ah!" And it sounded like he was trying to be creepy, but he was so little, and his voice was so high. It wasn't even scary. But he looked down at his hand, and they said, "Sure enough, every time you get a piece of it, each piece will glow. And you'll know after you get all 4 quadrants, all 4 pieces of this truth, then you will have averted our cataclysmic destruction of your world." Ah! And then they all just poof. Little green dust fell all across the room. And Timmy was left holding this thing. And slowly, pulsating dimmed. And all of the brightly colored quadrants just dulled. And there was nothing. And Timmy was confused, and he's looking at it and kind of shakes it. He's thinking, truth? What do I know from truth? I'm barely, walking, I'm barely talking. I don't know from truth. He could think really complex thoughts. He just couldn't express them. That'll become important as we go. And so he held it, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know." But the pressure was getting to Timmy, and he was really worried about, he quite liked the earth at this point, and its destruction was, not what he needed first thing in the morning. And so he took the medallion, and he kind of tucked it in the very top of his diety, and he was like, "Okay, we're going to figure this one out. And then he, started to cry, made the requisite ruckus so that somebody came in to get him, and somebody came to get him. And part of truth is what I love. Okay, he said, I can do this. And he started thinking more. He started thinking, okay, what else do I love? And he's like, I love ponies and rainbows. And he could feel like he was stretching a little bit. He was trying to stretch it a little too far. And nothing was happening. You could tell, okay, it's going to be more complex than this. He knew that truth was nuanced. It was going to be a big deal. And so he was thinking, okay, where else do I feel it? Where else do I feel truth? And he was racking his little tiny toddler brain, and then he remembered this place that he used to go, this place far up on the top of a hill. His parents were way into it in the beginning, and he was like really excited about this place in church. He was just remembering it. And church, I really liked church. And he started remembering the faces of a couple of the kids that he used to play with. And he was like, okay, there's something to that place, something to that church. And it was a little pre-verbal, but he tried giving his parents some clues, and tried making a little chalice with his hands, and tried tried, pretending like he was reaching for an order of service. He was trying anything that he could think of. And then he mustered all of the language that he had, and he kind of fixed his mom with this really burly little person stare, and he said, "Mom, what about God?" And this panic-stricken look came over the mother's face. She was like, "I can't believe we stopped going to that place. I can't believe we haven't been going to that place." And so sure enough, that Sunday, everybody packed into the minivan and they rolled on up to church. And it was great. There's people that greeted them. It's like they never had left. And it was all very sweet and very exciting. And then he knew he had to find those other kids. And he kind of scampered and half crawled, ran over to the playground. And sure enough, there were these fantastic childcare people and all these little people that he knew and all these little faces, and he started to play and he started to connect, and he could see these other children's faces, and they just linked eyes and linked hearts, and they started to play, and just then a little he was like, "Aha, I thought I'd on to something." He said, "Excuse me," and he stopped the little game and he turned over and checked, pulled it out, and sure enough, the second little quadrant was pulsing, and the first one went like bing, 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 and the second one went bing, 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 and he was like, "Aha! I'm getting close," and he sort of tucked it back in, and he was thinking, okay, so I know it's not going to be the same thing again, and he's like, what do I have here? I have truth, I have what I love, and I have connecting with other children, with their eyes and hearts, and connecting with other people, and he's like, okay, I'm on to something. But he was exhausted. It was already been a really big couple days, and so he looked around and he was trying to think, there's got to be something else here. Tried playing on the playground and sliding down and looking at the childcare people, and there was, check it, no, nothing yet. And they came in, worship started, and it was really cool, and he loved worship, and it was huge and loud, and it was really fun, but still nothing. But then there was this part where they all left. All the kids left after a good worship together, and they went off to a room, and he sat down in this room, and there was this really, really super tall person. There was two of them, two super tall people walking around the room, getting a little circle going, getting a little chalice lit. And he looked straight into the eyes of one of these super tall people. And he was looking straight down at them. And his eyes were so soft, and there was this beautiful warmth coming from his eyes, from his heart. And he looked deeply into it, and he could just feel, little Timmy could feel how he was held. How all of the kids there in that class were held. He could feel this connection between him and this big, tall person. And just then, in the middle of feeling this it was he said, "Excuse me," and tipped around, and sure enough, kind of pulled it out, all secret, and the first sound was like bing, 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 and the second one, bing, 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 and sure enough, the third, bing, 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 and they're all glowing. And he's like, okay, out of his mind, he said, God, I wonder, his mind started opening. And the more he knew that he didn't know, it opened even farther, and it opened up, and he wondered so deeply, was filled with this wonder, every last bit of him full of this wonder. And sure enough, just then, he was like, the wonder, and so he pulled it out, and sure enough, it was like bang, 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 and he started glowing and pulsating all the 4 different colors, and kept singing this song, and sure enough, right then all the wee leaping greenly things showed up. And they were no longer bouncing because they knew that they had vested. And they all landed right on the edge of the crib, and they looked up at them. And a couple of them were happy because they weren't so into the destruction of other species and people. But most of them were really sad and kind of angry, and they knew that they had to go find another planet. And they said, okay, what have you learned? Little Timmy looked down at the medallion and he started shaking it. And he said, this thing is singing Spirit of Life! He started listening to bang, 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 and he was like, ah, you knew it! Crazy marketing ploy, that's what that was. Extraterrestrial marketing ploy, but he said, this is what I know, I know truth is what I love. Truth is my quest to grow love, to expand my heart, expand my mind. And I do it and I see it when I'm face to face with other people doing the same thing, and when we're held by those tall people with their warm eyes and soft heart. And then I know, the more that I know, the more my mind opens, the more I sit in wonder. And they all kind of nodded their tiny little green heads. And they were like, all right. And they disappeared. And it would be nice to think, from that point on, Timmy's family went to church all the time, but you know, they did what they could. But the earth stood, and we were saved again.